We're moving right along, so we are going to turn our attention now to our next guest, just hanging out here, in the virtual
in the frozen tundra.
in the frozen tundra. That's right. Of course, Karen and I are in Florida.
Yes, can you tell? Well, actually, I'm not. I'm in Chicago. I'll put up a Chicago scene momentarily, but
don't please.
Okay, yeah, but it's nothing like. Are you in Philadelphia or New York tonight, Jess?
New York.
And is it as snowy there as we're hearing about Boston?
We had probably about 9 inches.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. The wind has been awful, though. It's been a crazy storm. And we're going to have lows below 0 this weekend, which is not normal for here.
Right. Well, it's not normal for any place. Let's get real. Here, I got us more with a picture in the spirit of.
Oh, there you go. Next time I need more air conditioning, I'll just look at that photo.
There you go.
That's all it takes, because everything can be hypnosis. My friend Karen Hand taught me that just a little while ago, and she was absolutely right. So Jess, we're really happy to have you with us tonight. Thank you for being a friend, as the song says, and for joining us for World Hypnotism Day. I think this is the 13th or 14th or something like that. And
Tom said the 14th World Hypnotism Day. Yeah.
Yeah, that is what he said, but I think it's the 13th actually.
Oh. I didn't fact check it. I just went with it.
I did some homework. But in any case, Jess, we're thrilled to have you. And how are you? Well, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me to take part in this. This is like the first time ever I've taken part in an official World Hypnotism Day event, so I'm very excited to be here.
Oh well, we're not very official, you know.
Well,
we are the official, unofficial World Hypnotism Day.
See, that's pretty official then.
Oh, there you go.
We may be the most official.
Before we get into the topic for this next segment is a couple of things, actually. We've talked about weight loss. We've talked about medical stuff. We've talked about stage hypnosis. I want to talk a little bit about smoking. And just because I'm talking to Jess Marion, I want to make sure we include in that conversation something about deep trance identification, which is something that I'm particularly fond of and that she has really got some expertise about. But actually, one of our participants has put up a question already that I don't want to put you on the spot, so just take a breath. Because they're just wondering, because there's so many different speakers and presenters here, and we've all got a variety of experiences, and they wanted to know what were if every speaker would share their favorite or craziest session. You got a craziest session or a favorite session that you'd like to share?
Well, I've definitely had some crazy sessions. In terms of favorite sessions, it's difficult to narrow it down. I think probably one of my favorites, it's one of my favorites for 2 reasons. The first is the client, of course, got not just the results she wanted, but something way beyond that. But also because the way it happened was really fascinating. This was a few years ago, and she came to see me because she wanted to work through some emotions. She had some issues around having an abortion earlier in life. She had come from a country where poverty is the norm, and she just couldn't afford the child. And then she believed, as a result of that, that God had cursed her and she couldn't have a baby. So kind of heavy stuff. We did a lot of reframing, and she wanted to experience hypnosis. So I did a formal induction with her, and she happens to be from Bali. And for anyone familiar with Milton Erickson, you'd probably be familiar with the Balinese trance dancers.
Yeah.
There is this tradition of trance, and trance that takes on a very kind of violent appearance that's built into Balinese culture. So as I did the induction with her, her eyes are open, they roll in the back of her head, and she starts to like really violently convulse. And I have this moment of, oh my God, I think she's having a seizure. What do I do? So I count her out of trance. And as I do, everything's fine. So I treat it like a fractionation, back in, Same thing happens again. So now I'm like really curious. So I bring her back out of trance again, and I ask her about it. I'm like, what's happening? And she explained it to me. She's like, I'm from Bali. That's how we do it. It's like, wow, okay, this is a really great education that, you know, trance doesn't have to be this downtime, eyes closed, hand levitating in the air experience.
But you get a bigger office.
You know, right? She was so much fun to work with, and every time she'd go into trance, it was slightly different, but it was always like, oh, what's going to happen this time? And it was also probably one of my favorite clients because she didn't come to me because she wanted fertility work. She did want to get pregnant, but her big thing was about letting go of this grief and this idea that God or the gods were cursing her. 6 months later, it was around Christmas time. This was back 2014, I believe. She calls me just out of nowhere. I'll never forget it because I was walking through the snow in Central Park, much like a day like today. And she says, you know, I just want to thank you because I'm 3 months pregnant. And it's because of the work we did. And to me, I was just like, wow, talk about hypnosis really being this, not just a force for good, but this force for creativity on a very foundational level. So that's probably one of my favorite client stories. In terms of crazy ones, there's a list.
So Shelley Blackwell wanted to add something about Bali trance. She does a lot of things in Bali. So Shelley, you can unmute. There you are. You're up.
Unmuted. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say one quick thing, and that is because I go to Bali so many times and I bring groups there, the word that they have for trance in Bali is karawahan, which means God coming. And so anytime they enter in the trance, it's a very sacred thing. And I teach in Bali all the time, and I teach the Balinese through a translator. And it's very usual for someone to get up and start dancing. And they start doing all the traditional dances and everything when they enter trance. It's just part of their entire indoctrination into life, I guess. So that's all I wanted to add. Karawahan, God coming.
Except for the translator, of course, who has their trance.
My translator has to trance my language into their language.
Well, trance anyway.
Thanks, Shelley.
Thanks, Shelley.
All right.
So, Jess, you've had more than just unusual clients. You have, I want to know a little bit about deep trance identification, because I've done some deep, I got a book written, one way I got a book written was deep trancing on Jess Marion, by the way. If you've seen their table of books, that's a good place to start. And Shelley's another great place to start. So what is deep trance all about?
Well, deep trance identification is really the fundamental way that humans learn. This is how children learn to speak, how to walk, and the foundations of whatever their cultural values are, depending on where they grow up. And it's this idea that we dream into the people around us who we're in rapport with, who we have a connection with. In neuroscience, we refer to this as the establishment of avatars. Inside of our brains, we have representations of the people important to us, models, if you will, in our lives. And that representation may be close to who they actually are, but it doesn't really matter because it's what we believe them to be. And especially when it comes to someone that we want to learn from, we very naturally and unconsciously step into them at some point within the learning process. So this really comes out of, first of all, how we're wired. There is a tradition of this that spans centuries. We were just talking about Bali and the idea of the gods entering. This is one way of looking at it would be the frame of deep trance identification. This is something that repeats itself through cultures over time. And for me, it is the most efficient way to learn new skills, to create generative change, to create therapeutic change, and also to have more of a human experience. And it's something, as I said, that we all do unconsciously. And as a modality, as a system, all we did was take these natural learning strategies and bring them into conscious awareness. So deep trance identification is really a strategy of using hypnosis in order to activate parts of our neurology that allow learning to be easy and also allow us to adopt skills, beliefs, behaviors, and emotions of a particular model. So, for example, And this one comes to mind because today was actually a realization of one of my DTI experiences. About, oh goodness, 5 months ago now, I started CrossFit, and I couldn't do like anything physical. I was the most unathletic person out there. And I signed up for the gym, and their ads started popping up in my Facebook newsfeed. And there's one ad that has this woman who's swinging this very big kettlebell, and she's super muscly. And I'm like, oh man, I want to be like her. So each morning when I'd go to the box, I would see her, I would hallucinate her standing at the doorway of the gym. And as I walk through that doorway, what do? I walk right into her. There were, of course, mornings where I didn't want to get up and do it, where I would just prefer to sleep in bed. Maybe it was too cold, maybe I was sore. But I bring her to step into her, and then I'm ready to go. And it's fresh in my mind because today, for the first time, I actually swung the size of kettlebell that she's swinging in the ad. So now I'm like, I better find a new DTI model. Ultimately, though, the idea with deep trance identification is not simply to become or to model someone else. That's the first step. But the idea is that we move beyond that so that we become something greater than the sum of the parts. We become something greater than who we were before the modeling, and something greater than the model themselves, because we're all unique. We bring our own memories, our own experiences, our own values, our own beliefs and archetypes into the experience, and those get enhanced and further developed through the process of DTI. So, you know, just a short answer there.
A great answer there. And so does this take one session, 5 sessions? I know each client is dependent, but about how long a time frame are we looking at here?
So it really depends on the client and what their goals are. We can do instant DTIs, which I do pretty much with every client at some point because I think it's useful to the overall generative or therapeutic process. But if somebody's doing a long-term modeling project, if there's really a behavior that they want to install long-term or some learnings, some skills that they want to integrate, then, you know, it becomes a question of how long is a piece of string. If I'm working with clients who want these long-term skills, I say a minimum of 10 sessions. And this is partly because in my experience, that's about how long it takes because it gives you opportunities to go out and try the skills, have things not work, bring that back into the session, tweak it, and reset. It also gives you enough time to explore different aspects of the model and their biography, their life experience. We talk about in NLP this idea of modeling excellence, but that's only half the story, and that's only half the DTI process, because in the moments where models aren't excellent, when they have moments of failure, there's really important things that we need to learn there. For example, how did they rebound? Where did their resiliency comes from? In those moments of failure, of hardship, when things didn't work, there's tremendous learning there that contributed to the model being an expression of excellence in whatever field they're in. So as a part of the DTI process, we're having the client experience successes, but also failures. We also need to move the client beyond just this idea of becoming someone else and expressing that, because we want that part, because we really are, for those of you who are familiar with parts work, we're creating a very distinct part, a very distinct avatar in the client's mind with this process. But we need to integrate that back in so that the person is complete and can carry this, whatever the behavior, skill, or emotion is, out into the real world in a way that's congruent with them and is also going to match the contexts that they happen to live in. You know, if you have a client who DTIs with Steve Jobs, and at the beginning of the process, they're a family man, and they come out of the process saying, I don't have any time for family, I'm just going to work, 22 hours a day. That's not really a holistic approach. It's not really ethical, and it's not useful. So we have to spend some of the time integrating the things that are useful and discarding the rest. And it's a bit more of a process than just instruct the unconscious mind to leave the stuff that isn't useful. There are other things we have to do around values and around parts integration. So generally for a long-term modeling project, 10 session minimum. That's how I normally work with people who approach me who want to do a modeling project. I should say that there is also, there is work that goes into this. It isn't just the nice, lovely, deep trance experience, but there are things that the client needs to do outside of the session, because we need to have a robust enough avatar, robust enough representation of the client's model that the DTI can take. If they have a model that they don't know anything about, that they don't connect with, that they don't feel a rapport with, even if they've never met them in real life, then it's not going to have the same result as a model with a client who is possible, has lots of reference experiences, either through reading about them, watching videos of them, listening to them, or meeting them. So short term, within a session, for a robust modeling, 10 sessions. I've had some clients who've come back for another 10 sessions with the same model because they've taken it out for 6 months, 7 months, and tried it out and they want to tweak it. And that means that if we do the modeling project with the same model again, 6 months or a year later, the experience and the results are going to be different because the client is different. For myself, I still go back to some of my favorite models from time to time, even though the modeling project's over, and revivify that, because there's always something to learn and something to add and integrate into the experience.
Just, I just might add, because as we're talking about this particular topic, that I remember John Grinder discussing the modeling of Milton Erickson that he and Richard had done. He didn't have much to say about what Richard did with regard to modeling, but in terms of his own strategy, what John had suggested was that he actually modeled by just deep impersonation. That is, he took on all of the characteristics of Erickson that he could incorporate.
Yeah.
And then subsequently removed one at a time those things in order to discover what was idiosyncratic and what was extraneous, what was expendable, what needed to be in the model, and what could be left behind, and pared it down from there. But when John was first doing Richard or Milton Erickson, he couldn't do Milton Erickson without doing the Milton Erickson voice that has become this sort of comic thing within the entire NLP community. Because
this is
without doing all of it first.
This is in NLP terms, this would be the origins of the new behavior generator, meaning you have some aspect of the behavior that ignites the entire neural network of the model. And that's one way of doing it. That's more of an kind of going from the outside in, versus the type of DTI work that we do that's far more inductive. You actually go into and experience pivotal moments within the model's life, because those moments are what created the skill, the belief, the values, and so on. Sure. So both are very useful, and it just depends on what the particular goals are. Our work comes primarily out of initially the work of Vladimir Rykov from Russia, where he would just drop people into deep trance, regress them to young ages, have them associate into the model, grow them up as the model, and integrate hypnotic phenomena. So that's the origins of our approach, as well as some of the things that I've read about what Steve Gilligan had experienced with Erickson. So it really depends. It depends on the model, depends on the client. Definitely with my kettlebell lady, I'm taking the John Grinder approach. I'm not spending hours in deep trance. It's take on the physiology, take on the behavior. Sean and Sarah Carson, my business partners and lovely friends, they have a book on a pattern that's very similar called the beat pattern, where you begin with the physiology, the body, the breathing, then the emotions, the attention, and then the thought process. And you can do this as a state change, but you can also do this as a type of DTI. So it sounds very similar to what Grinder was doing.
Nice.
And so let me just clarify, there was a question asked about what is DTI? Deep Trance Identification is what DTI stands for. And Jess, there was something in your book that I found extraordinarily useful for me as I was doing a deep trance with myself, with you, was having not only going into the person, but having that person come into you and perform through you. And I definitely did that with you because I didn't want to walk out of the situation with sight issues. So I made her come into me and do her thing through me so that we could see it. Does that make sense? And I found that so incredibly useful. I thought that was a brilliant addition to the whole process.
Thank you. That pattern came out of my work as an anthropologist looking at spirit possession. particularly in Malaysia. And I thought, oh, let me try this on. And to address the other concern about ecology, this is an important one. When Steve Gilligan DTI'd with Erickson, for a while he developed paralysis in his arm because the unconscious believed that, okay, well, this is what you must need to do it. We've gotten a lot better about that now. And the way to sidestep this as well is to do, before you actually do the DTI, is to set up an unconscious agreement. I like to do it with a pendulum. I did this when I DTI'd with Steve Jobs because I was worried about serious ecology. So you set up signals, yes, no, with the unconscious. You ask permission for the DTI, yes, no. You ask if the unconscious mind is willing to engage in this, and you ask that the unconscious mind leave any of the physical attributes out. So you can do something along those lines. We talk about that in the book as well. And I recommend that before you do a full modeling project where you're going to really immerse yourself into somebody else's life experience, that you do this ecology check up front. It makes things so much easier.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. By the way, so if I heard this conversation correctly, I understand then, Karen, that you modeled Jess in order to write your book. So
I did.
So I'm wondering if Jess is entitled to royalties.
Well, Jess wrote the foreword for the book, and she helped me do the whole upload, so she's entitled to credit. Please. Am I going to pay her much? Probably not. How much do you think I'm making off the book?
That's what I heard, was that you channeled.
I have to have a whole table like theirs and Shelley's before I actually make any money off these books. I'm getting there, though.
Well,
I'm DTIing Shelley Stockwell, too. She'll be up in a little bit.
So Jess, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about that I think we're just going to forego is a little bit about smoking as well. But we're only 6 minutes left before it's time to move on to the next thing. So I'm wondering if there's any. I'll tell you what I would love to hear from you, Jess, because you're just such a wise lady, and you've been doing such great work. What do you think for new hypnotists, for people that are really getting into this? What do you think is the most important thing that hypnotists should bear in mind that really can make all the difference in the work that they do?
Well, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I'm
not on the spot.
I'm going to cheat. It's 2 answers.
Go ahead.
The first answer is that as a hypnotist, you need to have exquisite state control. If you're going to do a hypnotic induction, go into trance first. It makes your life easier. If you're eliciting a big uptime, like go get 'em state, go first. You have to feel that in your physiology, because guess what? Your clients are unconsciously DTIing into you because of mirror neurons. So use your physiology, use your state to show the client unconsciously the direction you'd like for them to move in. Yeah. The second thing, and I learned this one the hard way, is regardless of what your background is in hypnosis, because I should mention, like, I came into hypnosis through the Ericksonian and the conversational covert type world of client change work. And I had a lot of clients who came in expecting pretty much the equivalent of what's behind you, Michael, the swinging watch. And as much as it kind of made me cringe at first, if you have a client who expects deep trance, who expects to have experience of hypnotic phenomena, give it to them at some point in the session. Always meet your client's expectations, because if you don't, the risk is that, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it does and can happen, is that the client comes out of trance and goes, well, that wasn't really hypnosis, it didn't work. So it doesn't matter the brilliant piece of change work you did with them, if you didn't meet the expectations, it comes undone. So I work conversationally. I don't do my change work in deep trance with clients. However, if a client is coming to me specifically for hypnosis, and DTI would fall into that category as well, by the end of the session, they will have experienced deep hypnosis. Even though I already know, and they unconsciously already know they've changed, that expectation needs to be met. So meet your client where they are.
Nice. I appreciate that. By the way, I was amused. I love this technology, because what's happening is I was watching you answer the question, and you were talking about if you need to go into an uptime state, to really let yourself, or to get a client there, to let yourself go there. And I was watching out of one corner of my eye as Shelley Stockwell was shaking her head like this. And Shelley Stockwell, it's a lesson that I think you really need to learn because you're such a reserved young lady. When you look at clients
Yes, not demonstrative. We never know where Shelley is at any one particular time. Always in the dark.
So just one more thing. Is there any you got anything going on that you want to tell people about, or let us know how to contact you and such as that there?
Sure. Well, we actually have 2 pre-conference workshops coming up at HypnoThoughts Live 2018. The first, me and Sarah are going to be teaching, and this is from pre-write to publication, your complete system for writing books. So we're going to teach you how to write if you have a book inside that is just waiting to come out, how to organize, how to do a pre-write that practically writes the book for you. We're going to be doing a lot of work on the writer's states, because really it isn't just about writing, it's about how you're feeling as you do it, because that's what's going to carry you through to completion. We're going to show you how to structure books in a way that speaks to the conscious mind as well as the unconscious mind, how to write hypnotically, but not in a way that's like kind of weird, like the reader knows you're doing something. And then we're also going to show you the practical side of doing it, the tips and tricks that we've picked up in terms of writing, and how to go all the way through to publication. So we have that coming up. And then Sean is teaching an introduction to conversational hypnotherapy, or HNLP, Humanistic Neurolinguistic Psychology, which is a 3-day pre-conference at HT Live. And you can find out about both of those by reaching out to me. You can find us at theintelligenthypnotist.com. You can also reach out to me through email at philahypnosis@gmail.com. That's PHILA, like Philadelphia, hypnosis@gmail.com. We'd love to see anybody there who would like to come write with us or really master the art of uptime state-based transformational coaching.
Lovely, lovely. All right. So thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been lovely talking with you this evening, and happy World Hypnotism Day to you.
Yes. Thanks for joining us. Hang out as long as you'd like to. We have some great people coming up, Jess. We've got Jason Lynette's up next.
Nice.
Mike Watson's going to talk about his Tibetan star process, which is just phenomenal. Shelley Stockwell's going to talk about transpersonal hypnosis. And Andrea Michelle is going to talk about everyday stress and anxiety. So lots of stuff still coming up. Hang out as long as you'd like. We're having
Thank you so much, guys. Happy World Hypnotism Day to everybody. And if I don't catch you on here, I can't wait to see the recordings. Thanks so much, guys.
All right.
Yes. Thanks, Jess. See you soon.